Every now and then I come across a YouTube comment that is so valuable that I have to make an entire video about it. Well, today is one of those days. One of our subscribers, well, let me refer to her as Kay, just took the Part 107 exam and passed it with an outstanding score of 93%. Can you believe that? First of all, Kay, congratulations. You deserve the title FAA Certified Remote Pilot. That is so awesome. So, everyone, after Kay passed the exam, she came back to this channel and left one of the most detailed post-exam comments about her experience, and honestly, I have not seen a comment like this for a long time. She commented on several questions that appeared on the exam and pointed out the ones that were the most tricky even after she studied for the exam. I'm going to be discussing all of the 7 questions that Kay presented, and I'm going to break them down in detail, so get your pencils and papers out. Are you ready? Let's go. Now, before I begin, remember that the FAA is using a large question bank, so there's no guarantee that you're going to see the exact same question on the exam, but these are real topics and they have been recently appearing on the FAA Part 107 exam. Understanding them could be absolutely important, crucial, if you want to succeed on test day. Now, if you read the comments on this channel, you're probably going to learn more from what they're asking than what it is that I'm telling. And by the way, I do answer each and every question, but you will find the answers yourself on my website at MikeSytes.com. Here's a prime example of a comment that came in from Derek. He asked this question, RID question. That stands for remote identification for those of you who don't know. First of all, great content and thanks for sharing and instructing. So my question is, SUAS under 250 grams do not need to comply with remote ID unless they are flying commercially, right? i.e., I fly a tiny drone to capture video for a commercial customer and it's less than 250 grams. Do I need to broadcast remote ID? I believe that answer is yes, and I've seen it taught this way twice, but I cannot find it in 14 CFR anywhere. I was looking for an exercise to teach myself and became familiar with using CFR. Can you point me to the regulations and spell out the distinction of RID on all commercial drones, even under 250 grams? Thanks. Now, this is a great question, and I truly enjoy answering these types of questions because what he's asking is, does remote ID need to be on a drone that is under 250 grams and being flown commercially? He's also pointing out that he can't find this information anywhere under 14 CFR Part 107. Now, here's how I answer this question. Let me read the fine print, but before I do that, let me put my reading glasses on. Now, by the way, I just want you to know that the reason I'm wearing these shades, these sunglasses, is because the studio lights here are so bright that if I took them off, my eyes throughout the video would be like this. And I would be talking to you like this with my eyes closed because my little green eyes can't see with all of these bright lights and I have to keep them closed. So I wear these so I can keep my eyes open and feel like a normal human being. So for those of you who are posting those nasty comments and saying that I look like Lawrence Fishburne, well, go ahead, do it. But I need to wear these because if I don't, my eyes are going to burn. Now that I've explained that, let me put on my other glasses so I can read the fine print here in regard to what it is that I answered on this question. So here's how I answered this question exactly as I'm looking at it on screen. This is a great question. You've actually stumbled onto one of the most misunderstood parts of the FAA regulations. The short answer is yes, a sub 250 gram drone flown under Part 107 must comply with remote ID, but the reason is not because it's commercial. The reason is because it's registered, and registration is what triggered the remote ID requirement. Make sense? The registration requirement is found under 14 CFR point 48.15. Should I say 14 CFR 48.15? Since it's commercial, every Part 107 drone must be registered, and it means that every Part 107 drone must also have remote ID unless operating under a FRIA or under exemption of Part 89 link. So that's why you couldn't find it under the 250-gram language, because it does not exist. It's an inference under Part 48 and Part 89, and they both work together. So how did I do on this? Thanks. Do you see just how much you can learn from reading the comments, questions, and the answers? And here is another comment from Christian, who just passed the Part 107 exam and advised me that this question that I'm about to tell you was on the Part 107 exam, and I put this question on my channel post, and guess what? I checked it this morning, and 45% of you answered that quiz question incorrectly. So here it is. Here's the question. A remote pilot wants to fly a drone at a Class D Delta airport when the control tower is closed. What airspace is the surface area typically classified as during this time? I'm asking you. The control tower is closed at a Class D airport. You're about to fly a drone at this Class D airport when the control tower is closed. What is the area of airspace at the surface going to be classified at this time that the control tower is closed? Well, this is an excellent question, and this question is IS on the Part 107 exam, and here's the answer. A Class D airport is only Class D airspace when the control tower is open, when it's operating. Once that control tower closes, the Class D designation no longer applies, because Class D airspace is specifically tied to an active air traffic control tower. This is what happens when you're taking the Part 107 exam and they ask you this question and you don't know the answer. What happens after the control tower closes depends on whether or not the airport has a continuous weather reporting system. So if an airport has a weather reporting system, such as AWOS, the airport is usually classified as Class E airspace from the surface. But if the airport does not have a weather reporting system, such as AWOS, then the airspace of that particular airport at the surface will be classified and considered as Class G airspace. Priceless information. Get your pens and paper and take notes. That is going to be on the exam. So the correct answer will be, it will be either Class E or it will be either Class G, depending on whether or not the airport has a weather reporting system. Now, let's get back to Kay's one comment, which actually provided 7 topics and also proposed 7 questions from the Part 107 exam. Here's question 1. Self-imposed stressors and night vision. Now, she wrote that this question asked, what self-imposed stressors can make your night vision less efficient? So before I actually provide you with the answer, let's discuss this first. You see, the FAA actually provides information on self-imposed stressors that can affect your vision at night. This is all available on my website at MikeSytes.com under study guide number 13 for night operations. Now, to explain self-imposed stressors, remember those words. These things have to do with how your vision is affected at night. So self-imposed stressors is what you're going to need to remember. And the conditions which will impact your ability to see at night or in the dark are things that have to do with deficiencies in vitamin A and C, smoking, alcohol, certain drugs, which will decrease the oxygen that your eyes need in order to be able to see during the night. You see, we all have specialized cells in your eyes called rods. And rods are extremely sensitive to oxygen levels in your body, chemical changes inside of your body. Alcohol, for example, slows your visual response. It reduces your eye's ability to adapt to the darkness. We're also talking about smoking, which introduces carbon monoxide into your bloodstream and reduces the oxygen available in your eyes. The FAA wants remote pilots to understand that flying a drone at night isn't just about having anti-collision lights. It's also about recognizing your limitations in regard to what the human eye can do and what it cannot do under certain conditions. Now, question number 2 has to do with off-center scanning. And this is actually one of the only 2 questions that Kay missed on the Part 107 exam. The question she had was, how should a remote pilot scan for objects at night? Well, the correct answer is you should scan off-center viewing in 10-degree sectors, regularly spaced with a series of short intervals. Now, this is also on my website. You saw it earlier. I just presented that in the diagram. It's under study guide number 13. It's provided by the FAA. So let me explain this to you so you understand what it actually means. Whenever you're looking for an object in the sky, don't look directly at the object. Look 10 degrees away from where the object is not. It kind of sounds like The Art of War, right? Fight the enemy where the enemy's not. Have you read that book? Well, it's the same concept. Now, when it's about your eyes, the center of your eyes, the retina in the center, has cone cells. It's packed with cone cells, and those cone cells are only set up to see during the daylight, when there's light. But the rods that are on the outside of those cone cells can see at night because they are away from the cones in the center. So if the rods are on the outside of the retina, then obviously they're not seeing in the center. So here comes the analogy that you're going to connect with. If the rods are on the outside, then you're not looking straight at the object. You're looking on the side of the object, 10 degrees away, so your receptors, your rods, can see those things clearly, because what your rods are actually doing is allowing you to see the objects even though you're looking 10 degrees away. It's using some sort of peripheral detection to be able to find the object by you looking 10 degrees away, and your rods are away from the center, so you can see the object now rather than if you were trying to focus on it dead center. Does that make sense? Okay, let's move to question number 3. External remote ID broadcast module. Now, this one is very easy to overthink, and it will slip right by you and you'll get the answer wrong, but not after watching this video, no. You see, the FAA wants to find out whether you know what information is actually being broadcast from a remote ID module, an external module. And what they'll do is they'll try to tell you that, well, you know, this is an external remote ID module. Tell us what information is being broadcast. And the first thing that you're going to think of is that it's broadcasting the actual serial number of the drone. No, that is incorrect. And you know, there are a lot of people, and surprisingly to say, there are a lot of companies that I've been working with that think that remote ID is coming from the actual serial number that's printed on the drone and not the actual information that's being broadcast from the actual standard remote ID or the remote ID module. So in this situation, if they're talking about an external device, then it's going to have its own unique serial number separate from whatever serial number is on the drone. That's the only thing that you need to remember, that this is an external broadcast module transmitting its own serial number, the drone's position, the drone's altitude, velocity, takeoff location, timestamp. It's broadcasting all of that, but that number is being generated and broadcast from the little module itself, not from the drone. And this is what you need to remember so you can answer the question correctly on the Part 107 exam. Don't forget this. Write this down in your notes, because they're going to throw this one at you. They'll pull that card out of their sleeve and they'll say, okay, we got you. But they're not going to get you because you just watched this video. Let's move to question number 4. And this one has to do with airport signs, lighting, and marking. This is another question asked on the most recent exam, and here it is. Where can pilots find official explanations of airport sign, pavement markings, and lighting? Well, the answer is going to be not sectional charts. You see, sectional charts will show you where the airports are. It won't be in the charts supplement, because that provides airport information, specific information in regard to runway lengths, frequencies, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But it does not provide explanations about airport signs, pavement markings, and lightings. The only one that will provide you with that information is the AIM. And if they ask you this on the Part 107 exam, the answer will be the Aeronautical Information Manual, or AIM. So let me just tell you exactly what the AIM will provide you. It will explain everything in regard to signs, markings, lightings. This is what they're asking you if you know the difference between a sectional chart, a chart supplement, and the AIM. And where you find the AIM will be in the FAA air traffic publications. I put a link in the description so that way you'll know exactly how to go there. You can download the PDF, or you'll be able to view it as an HTML document, so you don't even have to download it. The section that you're looking for in the AIM is going to be section 3, that has airport markings, aids, and signs. That's the one you want. Chapter 2 will have aeronautical lighting and other airport visual aids. So click the link in my description to be able to take a look at that. And once you see it, you'll know exactly what the FAA is asking you for on the exam. As soon as you see that question, you're automatically going to know that they can't get you, because you know that the only place that you can see explanations of the airport signs, pavements, markings, lightings is going to be in the Aeronautical Information Manual. Number 5, flying near a smoking industrial tower. Now, this one, surprisingly, surprises a lot of people, and I don't know why. Because the question that they're asking you is, if you're filming a tower and the smoke is coming out of the tower, where should you position your drone? Well, the answer to that question, if you've watched my other videos, will always be upwind. That's the quick, easy, straightforward answer. Always be upwind. And that's because the smoke itself, when it's rising and moving, it's telling you where the turbulent air is. It's giving you an indication. It's telling you how to stay safe and stay out of trouble, how to remain in the safe zone. And if you don't know how to interpret this very simple warning sign of where the smoke is going, you're always going to be upwind, then you're going to probably more than likely have your drone at the bottom of that smokestack. So heed this advice. Flying through smoke can expose your drone to turbulence, to thermal turbulence. It will reduce visibility, of course. It will have exhaust particles coming out of the smoke, which can disrupt your drone and actually probably even damage it. Unstable air is what you're going to be exposed to. So if you're flying upwind, then you're keeping your drone in a much cleaner, smoother, safer place, where flying upwind keeps your drone in cleaner, smoother air, while the wind is carrying all of the nasty smoke away from the aircraft. Very simple question, common sense, for a very practical answer. Now, question number 6. This is about guide wires around skeletal towers, and everybody's ears just perked up, right? All of you who have been taking the exam, all of you who have passed the exam, all of you who are studying for the exam, this question keeps coming up over and over and over again. I've heard it so many times. And the reason is because this is probably one of the most misunderstood questions on the Part 107 exam, and I know exactly why now. It's because there are 2 variables behind this. First of all, this whole thing about guide wires and skeletal towers are meant for manned aircrafts. It's intentionally meant and was originally meant for manned aircraft and pilots who are flying planes. Why would the FAA be concerned about this for remote pilots? I don't know why, because we are limited to 400 feet AGL. But with the knowledge of knowing that if we are flying 400 feet AGL, that we may run into a guide wire. Now, let me explain this to you. A skeletal tower, which is like a radio tower, can extend all the way up to 1,000 feet. It can extend up to 2,000 feet. But the FAA wants remote pilots who fly drones to understand these particular details about skeletal towers, and I'm going to explain this to you right now. You see, many of the radio and television towers, the antennas, will exceed up to 1,000 feet AGL, or they can go higher. They can go up to 2,000 feet AGL. A skeletal tower is basically a steel lattice. It's a tower, and it's kind of like when you see the TV towers, the communication towers, and they're very high in the sky, and they have these guide wires that are extending down that are supporting it. That is the only way you can support an antenna that high, because it'll just blow over. So these guide wires can extend out from the tower. Pretend this is the tower right here, and I have some guide wires that are coming down, they can extend out to 1,500 feet. And it's pretty surprising because a lot of people say, what are you talking about? A guide wire can extend 1,000 feet away from the antenna? 1,500 feet away from the antenna? Absolutely yes. And that 1,500 feet, that number is what is on the Part 107 exam if they are asking you, how far out can those guide wires extend out? Well, the answer is 1,500 feet. And that question has been on the Part 107 exam over and over and over again, and no one has been able to get that correctly until today. You know the answer, everyone else knows the answer, and that is the correct answer. It's 1,500 feet. But if they're asking you a question such as, how far away should you remain from the radio tower with the guide wires at 1,500 feet? Well, that answer is 2,000 feet. You should remain at least 2,000 feet distance from the radio tower, since you already know that they can extend out to 1,500 feet from the actual tower. So that's what's throwing everyone off. It's confusing because you don't know, should it be 2,000 feet? Should it be 1,500 feet? Or what should it be, 2,500 feet? And they throw the 2,500 feet in there to throw you off. So the three answers that you're going to see in the multiple choice are going to be either 1,500 feet, 2,000 feet, or 2,500 feet, whenever it is that they're talking about how far away can those guide wires extend out from the actual tower. You already know the answer, and guess what? You know the answer for the other two also. So now let's move on to number 7, which has to do with flying at 32 degrees with visible moisture. Now, this is the last one that Kay provided. I found this in the FAA Aviation Weather Handbook, FAA-H 8083-28, and I found it where it has to do with understanding that when the temperature is at 32 degrees Fahrenheit and you see visible moisture, then that's an indication that you may have or potentially have structural icing. And when you hear the term visible moisture, what that means is fog, mist, clouds, drizzle. At freezing temperatures, tiny water droplets will freeze almost instantly when they strike your drone. Ice will build up on the propellers and the airframe. And what happens is that this will cause an aerodynamic shift. It will change the shape of the propellers. Then your lift will begin to decrease, the drag will increase, and eventually your aircraft may no longer even be able to fly safely. What you need to understand about this is that at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 0 degrees centigrade, and you see visible moisture, that there is a structural icing risk. And that's what you need to understand for the Part 107 exam. So here are my final thoughts. I want to give another huge congratulations to Kay, who is more appropriately known as Katya, for providing this information. More importantly, I want to thank her for taking the time to come back to this channel to help everyone else in this community. I want you to know, all of you, that comments like yours, like Derek's, like Christian's, so many more, are incredibly valuable. They're priceless because it gives everyone an opportunity to understand the difficult material that's so difficult to find. And it is obvious that all of this information, all of these topics are showing up on the Part 107 exams today. Leave a comment and share your experiences, and I will make another updated free Part 107 video covering the newest topics that are being tested. If this video helped you, don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. I will have more videos coming for you. I've been very busy trying to keep things together, but until then, I will see you all on the next video.